Kelly Folsom here. Welcome back into my studio and welcome back to the Art Life Conversations podcast. I'm super excited to dive into today's topic, episode number 30. 30 episodes. Can you believe that? Let's just take a moment just to take that in. I've been doing this for 6 months. We've been having these conversations, talking about all things art life for 6 months. So, yay! Yay, yes. Okay, so today's topic is on why the gallery system does not work for most artists. Okay, this is a good, juicy one, and I hope it's going to be so freeing and helpful to many of you. All right, so I don't know about all of you guys, but one of the first things I heard about whenever I was in art school, in terms of making a living as an artist, was galleries, the gallery system. So this is the primary thing that was talked about. All of us art students wanted to get into galleries. It seemed like it was the only path forward, the only way forward was to get represented by a gallery. And with this hope and dream was kind of, number one, it was this validation that all of us thought, most of the artists I knew, myself included, thought, well, if you got into a gallery, then that means you are validated as an artist, that, you must be really good at what you do, and kind of this stamp of approval of, you are now officially a real artist. I'm a real life girl, So, and with that came all of these sort of hopes and dreams of an easy business model, I guess you would say, that you wouldn't have to learn how to sell, you wouldn't have to market your work, you just are, in the studio working passionately on your art like the great artist that you are, and then your art agent, or your art gallery takes your paintings and finds all of these buyers effortlessly. You're invited to all of these wonderful shows and get offered to have solo shows where you're eating fancy cheese and wine and just being doted over for how wonderful of an artist you are, right? So I know for myself, this was kind of the fantasy, this was the dream, and it was really one of the only paths in terms of making a living as an artist and selling your art that was really presented to us. And little did I know that there were multiple paths. And little did I know that the gallery system path may not work out for me, and it didn't. Okay, so just to give you a little backstory, I did go the gallery route. I really pushed forward on that. And I, worked hard and diligently to curate my work and to contact galleries and submit my work to galleries. And at one point I was in over 10 different galleries across the country representing and showing my work. Needless to say, the maximum, however, that did not lead to a landslide of sales. In fact, it didn't even lead to enough sales for me to live off of. Even after about 5 or 6 years of working in that gallery system, and it actually started to get worse and worse and decline, especially I think it was in 2013 or 14. So I went to art school. I started when the recession of 2008 hit. That was my first year in art school. And so what ended up happening was that a lot of these galleries, were struggling after that point. And by the time I got into them a few years later, about 5 years later, they were still struggling and they were still trying to make it. And anyways, needless to say, that path did not work out for me. And I ended up, after learning about all the different ways that we can make a living as an artist, I ended up, walking away entirely from the gallery system. But today I wanted to kind of talk about why, why is it that the gallery system doesn't work for everybody? And, one thing I think that's not really discussed a lot is how many artists there are in the market. So we have thousands and thousands of artists just graduating from art school alone with art degrees every single year. In fact, there's a great book by Corey Huff called, what is it called? How to Sell Your Art Online, I believe is the title of his book. If you haven't read that, I would highly recommend checking it out just as a great educational reference, even if you're not interested in selling your own artwork online. It's just a really great book, and Corey did such a fantastic job of pulling these statistics and talking about these things very openly and honestly, which I really appreciated. So in his book, he has a chapter where he's talking about the different ways that an artist can sell their paintings, basically different ways an artist can make a living with their art. And so in there, he gives some statistics, and this was, I think, the statistics he was giving was from 2008. So I'm sure that this is even, multiplied by this point. But some of the statistics he was giving was the number of art students who graduated from art school every single year, and the number of galleries, the number of art galleries that were in existence, right? Which I think at the time was 6,000 galleries in the U.S. I'm speaking in terms of the U.S. here. So basically he pointed out what this means is that with those numbers, that your odds of even getting into a gallery, even getting represented by a gallery, were 50 to 1. And that's not even, he goes on to talk about this as well, that's not even an accurate statistic. It's actually worse than that, because that's just taking into account all of the artists who are currently graduating from art schools, right? Not to mention all of the established artists who have been in the field for decades, been in the market for decades, they've already got established spots in those galleries. Not to mention, on top of that, you have a huge percentage of artists out there who are self-taught, who are not, and when I say self-taught, I mean not having a college degree, right? So in this case, we were just taking into account college degree ratio. So, it means that your odds are even worse than that. Your odds are even worse than 50 to 1, right? And I'm not sharing any of this to dissuade any of you from going into the gallery system or to discourage you at all, okay? Not by any means, because there are so many ways, and I believe the possibilities are endless nowadays for artists to make a living. But I just want to point out, the gallery route is not the be-all, end-all. It is not your only route. It is not your only hope or the only way of survival. In fact, it might be the worst possible solution for you. And I don't think you will know it until you try it, until you try for yourself to see if it's going to work for you. For me, I tried for about, I think it was 7 years total, 7 or 8 years before I totally said, you know what, I am completely moving away from this path, and I am going to take control of my own selling and take control of my own artistic career and go without the galleries. Now, you can also do a combination of paths and have them work together in tandem as well. That is also an option. So just keep that in mind. But I primarily want to point out, like, because what I see happen too many times is that artists will only put their eggs in that gallery basket, right? They will only set all of their hopes and dreams on that gallery basket, and they will also like only accept that as a form of identification as an artist. Like they're really not an artist unless they're gallery represented. And I just think that that's bullshit. Like that's just baloney. Okay? It's baloney. Okay. So there are, being in a gallery is not what makes you an artist. You know, being a producing artist, a professional minded, a professional quality artist, you know, making art, being passionate about what you do, and yes, making a living from your art also is what makes you an artist, okay? So you don't need these external validation things to prove to everybody that you are an artist. If you are making art, you are an artist, okay? So we can be done with that and get that chain off of us and move forward. So, but I just wanted to, talk about this because it was such a huge issue in my artistic life, and I've seen it hold back so many other artists as well. Just being confined to that one path, that one route, that one solution. And I think it's just so narrow and so limited. And it's just not going to work for everybody. And plus, there's just not room for everybody in it. Because again, if you go back to looking at the number of artists that are operating in the marketplace versus the number of galleries, it's just, it doesn't match up. They cannot, the number of galleries that exist cannot support all of the artists who are in the marketplace. So some artists, a majority of artists, are going to have to find their own path, learn how to sell their own work, sell directly to collectors on their own outside of the gallery system. And there is a lot of opportunities out there for these artists, okay? So please do not think, I kept applying to get into these galleries. I kept submitting my, gallery proposals to them, and I just keep getting rejected. Please don't think that that is the end of your artistic career. You get to decide, which path you're in. Which path you take. We are living in the absolute greatest time on the planet in order to make a living as an artist. However, the issue I guess the excuse I hear a lot from artists is that they don't want to do the work, that they don't want to learn how to market, that they feel like they're not going to be good at the business side, that they're not good at selling, that they're scared to do that. They're scared to put themselves out there. And so, but the interesting thing about this, and I just want to shed some light on this for everybody listening, in case this is you, and that is like this misconception that whenever you get into the galleries that you're not going to have to do any of those things I just listed: the marketing, the selling, the relationship building, the going to events and showing your face and talking to people, In fact, you're still going to have to do all of that, throw in their advertising as well, okay? Because most galleries do not cover your costs of advertising either. They're also not going to run the business side for you. They are not going to, take responsibility for your taxes. They can't even guarantee you a certain amount of income, all right? So you still, as the artist, are left with the primary bulk of the same level of work that you would be doing if you were working for yourself and learning how to sell your own work, as you would, handing over that piece of control to the gallery, or to the gallery system, or to an agent, let's say. So you still have to do all of this work. You still have to build all of these skill sets, right? You still have to learn how to brand yourself, how to market yourself. You still have to build those relationships. In fact, the galleries that I was in that sold my work the best was the galleries that I was able to be at more of the shows. I was able to, I would have to fly out, to a gallery event at that gallery. So it would, not only did I have to invest my time and energy in my paintings, the cost of the supplies, the cost of the framing, the cost of shipping, I was still having to advertise on my end as well. I was still having to market and advertise on my end, and then spend money to hop on a plane, get a hotel, go to the show, meet the collectors, schmooze with everybody, network with everybody, all that stuff that we can get nervous over, nervous about. Connect with the gallery owners. I found that the galleries that I did the best with were the galleries that I had the strongest personal relationships with. And for example, the one gallery I had in Oklahoma, which was in my hometown, my home state, Oklahoma City, I lived there in that city. So I was able to pop into the gallery on a regular basis. I was able to go to the shows, all that kind of stuff. I was able to switch out work easily with them. And so I really feel like that was a big part of why that gallery did better, why my work did sell somewhat better. And when I say better, it's like, it's not like I was selling a ton of paintings through any one gallery, because I wasn't. And then the other gallery was here in Colorado, Evergreen, Colorado. That was my other better selling gallery. And again, when I say better, I'm talking, maybe I was able to make between $5,000 and $10,000 a year off of these galleries, and that's not very much. And that was my top two galleries, right? So I just want to share with you guys that this is why the gallery system does not always work. It doesn't mean anything personal against you. It doesn't even mean that your work isn't good. It's just there is a lot of artists in the marketplace who are trying to go that path. And, and I was somebody that was accepted into that system, right? I was somebody that did get in regardless of the odds. In fact, I got into multiple galleries, and it still did not produce enough sales for me to make a living. So I think the max that I was able to make from my galleries was somewhere between $25,000 and $30,000 a year in income. And that's gross, okay? That's not even after taxes or after cost of goods and supplies and all that stuff, right? So I was really supplementing a lot of my income through teaching and through selling on my own, through my own private studio as well. So I just want to, share this and be completely open and honest with you guys, especially for those of you who maybe are in that place where you're thinking, if you're not making it in that gallery system, maybe you are getting into some self-doubt, getting into some discouragement, some disappointment. And I just, want to share, like, there are so many ways for you to make a living as an artist, and we can talk more about those ways as well on other podcasts. But for this topic, I just wanted to share, like, this is why the gallery system does not work for most artists out there. It's just a simple, like, supply and demand issue, okay? And I also wanted to point out, like I said, that you're still going to have to learn how to do a lot of the things that you might be afraid to do, regardless if a gallery is helping you or not, okay? And you do want to learn those skills. You do want to learn how to sell. You do want to learn how to market. You do want to learn how to build relationships with people, build connections with your collectors, right? You're going to have to learn how to do that anyway, even if a gallery is helping you. So you might as well learn how to do it and do it for yourself, because it's a skill set that will only appreciate in value over time. And once you learn a skill set, nobody can take that away from you. Like, that is yours. And that's the other thing I kind of want to point out with the gallery system, is that if you put all of your eggs into the basket of the gallery system, and that gallery decides they're going to close their doors, well, any income that you were dependent on from that gallery, this has happened to me several times. This has also happened to a lot of peers and friends that I've talked with. They've had, great galleries. Maybe they were making $50,000 a year. Some I've heard were even making into six figures with a gallery a year. And then the gallery owners decide they're retiring. They're done. They're closing the doors, and the artist is left with like this huge void in their income. Right now, they have to figure out really quickly, how am I going to make up for that loss of income? How am I going to find another gallery and or find some other way to sell that amount of money to make up for that loss. So it really puts you in a position where you're very dependent on that other person. And of course, the fewer galleries you have, which is everybody recommends, we'll have fewer galleries, so that you can really keep them supplied and all that. But the fewer galleries you have, really the scarier it becomes, because if one of them closes and they were like your top gallery, well, now you're kind of in worse shape in that position. And again, like I said, this has been something that has happened to me. And I just want to share my experience with all of you. Maybe you've already gone through this. But I just want to share it with all of you to let you know, like, you're not alone. And you can actually have like master level work and still, be having a really hard time making it work with galleries selling enough for you, just because of the sheer volume of artists that they represent. So that's the other downside sometimes to some of the galleries, is some of the galleries will take on, a lot of the galleries will take on a lot of artists, so a really large roster of artists. So obviously that means that not everybody is getting first billing, so to speak, or first placement. Not everybody is getting the prime shows or the solo shows. And then the other thing I saw a lot with the gallery system, at least in the little art bubble I was in, was that they were taking on a lot of shows with organizations. So one gallery might have like 4 different shows going on throughout the year with other organizations. And so that meant that their gallery artists, if their gallery artists weren't in that show, in that juried exhibition, then their work didn't get shown on the wall that month, So a lot of galleries are doing things like that in order to stimulate some revenue and generate some interest. Bring new customers in the door, so to speak. So there's a lot of downsides to being in a gallery. Obviously, there is upsides as well. If you can find a gallery that will work for you and that will sell enough paintings for you. So obviously, if you can make it work, it can be a worthwhile path and avenue. I just find it really a scary path, because again, they keep ownership of the client information. So if they close their doors and they decide not to pass on that information to you, then again, you're left in a bad position because now you're missing that amount of revenue. So for me, it's just not worth that risk in order to go that route. So I just wanted to share with this podcast episode my experience with the galleries, why the gallery system does not work for everybody. I am not against the galleries, let's say. I just don't think the galleries are going to work for the majority of the artists out there. They will work for a small percentage of the artists that are out there operating right now in the marketplace, period. That's just a fact. Okay. So anyways, all right, artists, I hope that this has been helpful to you. As always, you can chime in on the conversation with me by emailing in at info@artlifewithkelly, KELLI.com. And let me know your thoughts. Feel free to share your experiences as well with selling your art, with working with galleries, what's worked, what hasn't worked. I'd love to hear others' experiences in this area as well. And I will see you next week for our next podcast. Happy painting, everybody. Bye.